So you can see all these little gaps where there's light between here. If you buy one of these campers that someone else has worked on, it's a good idea to ask for some renovation photos to see how they did it, and if they did it right or if they did it not right. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we're doing a renovation of our 1961 Aljo photo booth camper. And last video, we got all the skins off and we're doing some work on it. And then I started a video like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. And I forgot what it was about. So we're starting over. I did find this nice little drawing that I made, so I assume I must have made this last week. One thing that I do still need to measure is I need to measure the ceiling joists. I don't really get too concerned with exactly where the ceiling joists are. Mostly I'm just trying to mark where the windows and the openings are and how many ceiling joists are there. So I'm going to measure those, and then I guess I've got enough to do a SketchUp. And then the next thing that I need to do is I need to start pulling some stuff out of the inside so we can get the walls detached from the cabinets and then detach the ceiling joists and take that apart and then take the walls off. It sounds like a lot of work. So it turns out that the front is almost a ½ inch wider than the back, which is not too surprising since we didn't build these walls as one complete unit. But, you know, that's not even that surprising when you get one as it's built from the factory. You know, they tended to have a little bit of slop in them, and unless it got too extreme, they didn't really do anything about it. So what I'm going to do on this front and back window is I'm just going to measure from like a little side piece, and I'm going to measure down, and I'm going to measure up, and then I'm going to make sure that I note how wide this opening is there and how wide it is here, and we'll just position it on the model accordingly. And we'll do the same for the rear. Okay, so I've got my measurements for my front and rear windows. I've got the sides all measured out. So that's pretty much everything I need to make the SketchUp model of the walls and the roof. So if you were doing this on your camper, one thing I would recommend is going ahead and measuring the distance between each of your ceiling joists. It's just a little easier to have some kind of information in that regard. Since I've got a new wrap, I don't really have to be 100% concerned with where those windows and stuff are placed. And I'm just going to be adding enough ceiling joists to make sure I've got it all covered. You do also want to sort of plan that for any kind of, you know, anything that's going to mount to either the front or the rear, because you need to put a ceiling joist there to be able to anchor into. So like if you're putting a table up front, you want to make sure there's something there to drill that table into. Likewise, if you're doing a bed in the back, you want to make sure there's something running there for you to drill that bed into. It's not too hard to plan these things out, but you do kind of want to be aware that you need to plan them out. With all the measurements done, it is cold out because the light is fading and I need to start working on the SketchUp. Sound good? Sounds good to me. Okay, so last night I put everything together and got my SketchUp made. That's everything that's there currently, and then I'm going to make modifications to that and fix some of the things that don't work super well on that. So one thing I didn't mention is making that curve is probably one of the most time-consuming things you have to do, and sometimes it's difficult to kind of figure out exactly how it curves. But if you pick a couple of nice continuous beams and get a great big T-square and you just measure up, you know, 12 inches, 24 inches, 36 inches every foot and make a mark, and then measure over from that piece to the edge, you can go in SketchUp and you can put a bunch of little marker points and draw your curve to those points and get accurate enough. You'll still have to make some adjustments, especially if you're planning on reusing your side skins to make that fit what you actually have, and then just use your curve tool to kind of connect between the points. And it takes some finagling and some adjustment and drawing and erasing, and it takes a lot of time, but eventually you get there and it looks pretty nice. If you've got a camper that's still originally built, most of the time those walls will be attached to the cabinets from the outside. To take the walls off, you just need to go on the outside and take all the screws out or any nails that you see, and then you can pull those apart. Where I built those cabinets in place, they're all attached from the inside, so I know I have to go to the inside and pull all the screws. If you do have an original camper, once you've got the skins off, you can start looking for those screws on the outside to find them and pull them out. Okay, I'm going to get these cabinets out of here real quick, hopefully. Pretty tight. Piece of cake. There we go. Hey, there we go. So one thing I have to do before I even consider taking the walls off is I have to remove the breaker box and the outlets, and I've already taken the outlets off on the other side. I'm not going to reuse these outlets because these are just regular outlets, and really you should have GFCI outlets in any camper, an extra kind of safety precaution. This I will be reusing because it's a new breaker box. It's a square D 30 amp panel that we added when we rebuilt this, and it's in fine shape, so I'm going to reuse that, but I'm going to pull that off before I take the wall off. Simon's going to show you his treasure. What is it?
It's a snake roll. I'm going to play with it. Could you put it in this house for Shorty?
Oh, it's for Shorty. Oh, that's nice of you.
Do you think he'll play with it?
He might. He might. Okay, so the sharp-eyed viewers among you will notice that this has a 30 amp breaker in it, and that is sort of a no-no. I don't have a circuit in here capable of carrying 30 amps, so this would never blow if there was some sort of overload on that circuit. Now, I only ever had a 15 amp inlet, so there was no way I was ever going to wind up with 30 amps in here, but this is missized to what's in here. And it's not really a problem. Wouldn't have been a problem ever, but really I should replace this with a 15 amp breaker to match the 15 amp circuit that will be running off of it. And that's really all we need for a photo booth. Now, if this were an actual camper, I would have a 30 amp inlet, I'd have two 15 amp breakers on here, and one of those would have like the refrigerator on it, another one would have the air conditioner on it or whatever. So we'll reuse the box, we'll just get a different breaker. Okay, so one thing I want to do is pull out the old 12-2 wiring before I take this apart. Wiring is expensive, so if I can reuse some of it for some things, I probably will. Isn't that right, Shorty? I'm also going to pull out this old trailer wiring. I'll probably ultimately buy new trailer wiring for this when I put it back together, but a lot of times you need just a little piece, so might as well hang on to it if it's in good shape. Okay, so I'm going to pull off this cove molding that goes between the wall and the ceiling. There's the ceiling joists that run, across every so often, and they're screwed down into the sides of the walls. But because we built this without taking the skins off, the ceiling does not overlap the walls. Basically, what's holding most of the ceiling to the walls is this cove molding and the caulking that holds it on there. So I'm going to pop that loose, and once I've got that all the way loose, I think I can show you why you don't want to do it this way. Okay, so you can see all these little gaps where there's light between here, and that's because this outer wrap, the ceiling panel, doesn't actually overlap these walls. Now the way it's supposed to be done is that panel overlaps the wall and then it's tacked down all the way around, and so that makes this whole thing very, very strong. And I know a lot of people think like, oh, well, that's just an 1/8 inch piece of plywood, that doesn't have any strength. It doesn't have any strength when it comes to bending it like this. That's why we use it on that outer wrap. But have you ever tried to bend one like this? It is almost impossible to bend that panel without buckling it first. So those ceiling joists that you run across this way, that keeps it from buckling inward, but the panel itself is what's really making this whole box very, very strong. So that's an important thing to correct when I rebuild this. That's something that everybody should be doing when they build these, but it's also a reason why if you buy one of these campers that someone else has worked on, you know, it's a good idea to ask for some renovation photos to see how they did it, and if they did it right or if they did it not right. You know, the reason a lot of people do it this way is because they don't realize that this is actually a very structural element of the camper. And you know, for obvious reasons, it is very lightweight, but you definitely want to put them back together the right way. And if you take them apart and look at how they're taken apart, you will see that they've been put together a certain way for a certain reason. Okay, well, I've basically detached everything that connects the outer wrap, the ceiling wrap, and the end wrap with the walls. And so if I take those joists out, I don't think there's really anything holding the walls to the camper at that point. So it should come apart really quickly, possibly catastrophically. Maybe I should brace this a little bit. Well, I don't know. Do I want it to be exciting or do I want it to not fall on me? Oh, probably ought to not fall on me. Okay, so all the ceiling joists are detached and the sidewalls are detached, I think. So all I have to do is kick it apart, and I think the whole thing will be down to the chassis.
What's chassis mean?
That's like the metal part of the trailer. The part that everything's attached to. The frame, if you will. Oh, okay, that's where it's going to be, I guess. Careful.
Could you get that down?
Okay, so there's a 1/4 inch sheet of underlayment on here that now has a bunch of sticky junk on it. So I'm gonna pull that up before I worry about taking any measurements. Yeah. Here. Okay, so we've made our drawing of the chassis boards as well as the chassis itself. So I'm going to go ahead and put those into SketchUp before I finish disassembling it, because it is kind of important that all these boards go back on the exact right location. Alright, so I think that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching me tear this thing apart. Sometimes that's more fun than putting it back together. Make sure and like and subscribe and leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought about this process, and we'll see you in the next one.